Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Galicia. Hello from Seattle. This is our daily, or weekly, actually, weekly LinkedIn live session. It's my honor and pleasure to introduce Sanjay, who comes from our company Exeevo, who is going to talk about a lot of great things that we're doing in life sciences pharma. But before we get started, I'm going to flash up this ticker event and this little ticker symbol at the bottom. We would love to see where you're watching from. So if you're watching from Europe, if you're watching from Americas, just type in the window maybe where you're watching from, and I'll happy to give you a shout out. You can use an emoji and put your flag up there, your country flag, because it's always fascinating and interesting as we do these on a weekly basis, where people are actually watching the events. My other thing is that as you're engaging and listening to this conversation, if you have any questions throughout the conversation, I'm more than happy to surface that up so that we can actually ask Sanjay live, real time, to engage in the dialogue. So with that being said, welcome, Sanjay. Good morning. How are you?
Good. Thanks, Brian. Hi, everyone. I'm here in New York.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Sanjay, for joining us. So give us a little background about what you do at Exeevo, because we've had many conversations over the past several months, and then also I love to kind of do the icebreaker so people get to know you. You can share also what's one thing that's not on your LinkedIn profile that you'd like to share with the people in the audience.
Yeah, that's a great way to start. Good icebreaker. Let's see. Well, actually, here's a good one. Considering all the kind of recent happenings with perseverance and all that, if I were to ever be given a chance to go and settle in a kind of potential human settlement on Mars, I would take that chance up in a heartbeat. Much to the I don't know, consternation of my family, I suppose. But actually, I have a deep interest in that. 15 years ago, I actually co-wrote a book about how earthly religions would adapt to a potential future human settlement. So that's kind of one thing which is not on there. Otherwise, it's pretty kind of boring stuff about me. I've been in pharmaceuticals and biotechs all my life, all my working life, 20 years plus, and I live here in New York.
Fantastic, Sanjay. So, well, one thing is, what's your favorite Mars movie? Because of course, it sounds like you're. I mean, you've seen the Matt Damon movie, and I can't remember the name of it, but how he gets stranded there, and then there's been other missions to Mars. I mean, do you have a favorite movie on kind of your interest, pique your interest with your Mars?
Actually, there's been quite a few Mars movies, but my favorite one, really, if there is one, is actually the other one, Interstellar.
Oh,
Because
okay.
that's kind of much more imaginative, much more crazy, right? And perhaps much more impossible. Although you never know, right? With the way science is kind of progressing,
Yeah.
it might be possible someday. But yeah, I found that one to be fascinating, and like going up to a black hole. I mean, what's the next door planet, right? In comparison to that.
I know, exactly. You must have been super excited too when NASA had the whatever the latest Mars rover that had landed a couple of weeks ago. So you must
Yeah,
have.
and they had a code. They had
Yeah,
a code in the chute there. Yeah, it was pretty fun to watch all that.
that's right. That's right. So give us give the audience a little background on your role within now Exeevo, and then kind of we'll start from there.
Sure, sure. Yeah. So a little bit of a backstory about our company. We were actually born within a life sciences organization called Indegene, actually as a strategic alliance that we established with Microsoft, about 3 years ago. We saw kind of an opportunity of transformation in life sciences, and we just didn't think that the traditional technology, alternatives were really going to be able to scale to that sort of wave. And well, I mean, here it is. Of course, we didn't really anticipate the events of 2020, which have only sort of catalyzed further transformation and change. But that's kind of how we were born about 3 years ago as an incubated company within Indegene. And then last year we sort of separated, kind of became our own independent organization. Had another partner, Syneos Health, also another big life sciences organization, come in, and now we really have three strong organizations, Indegene, Syneos, and kind of Microsoft behind our mission.
That's fantastic. So give a little bit of background on what are the joint outcomes that we have delivered together. Because of course, in the conversations, particularly the formal ones we have on a quarterly basis, it's all this amazing, great progress that we've had this journey on. So give the audience a little bit of a perspective on what are the joint outcomes we deliver in life sciences, pharma, med tech scenarios.
Yeah, yeah. It's really actually quite simple. I mean, in a nutshell, we think that, health experiences, the ones created by life sciences organizations for both, healthcare teams or consumers and patients or caregivers, really suck. We think they're way less than amazing. And I'm talking about like, experiences, pre-care, during care, after care. They could be digital, they could be physical, they could be informational, operational, or other kinds of sort of executional experiences during the seeking of care or the delivery of care. There's a lot of sort of room for kind of improvement and change when you think about all the different ways of connecting and communicating, and especially in healthcare and in particular in our case for life sciences organizations, there are so many kind of missed opportunities, right, to have a meaningful and helpful interaction with either the healthcare teams or the patients, and that's kind of what we're all about. That's what we are here to change and to take to the sort of next level. In fact, we actually changed our name to Exeevo to reflect this sort of excellence in health experiences created with a level of innovation and sort of in vivo, meaning kind of human focus. Because today it's a very systems focus. We have this, we have that, we have CRM, we have marketing, we have medical, we have this, but like ultimately, who's putting it together, right? And how does it come together in the journey that a typical patient or a healthcare professional or a pharmacist experiences from the manufacturer of all these amazing products, whether they are medicines or biologic products or self-care products or medical devices. I think this part needs a lot of change, and that's kind of the outcome that we're after.
That's great, Sanjay. And as we were doing the pre-show and you and I having the conversation, for those of you who don't know, Exeevo actually just went live over the weekend. So if you go to the Exeevo website, it actually is showing up there. And of course, Sanjay, as he was working, aligned to Omnipresence, if you go to the Omnipresence website, it's going to redirect you to the new Exeevo kind of personalization and experience. So you mentioned kind of the origin of the name. So how long did it actually take you to come and take what you were known as Omnipresence, and then of course I'm sure it was not just you, but many different people to actually come up with these, like especially in a pandemic, like how did you work through that process of doing this amazing brand execution with the origin of that name, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah. Thanks for the mention there, Brian. And actually, for those who might know about that, Omnipresence is in fact our previous name, and in fact still our name for the platform that we offer, together with the Microsoft technologies in our strategic alliance for kind of like the business to business or the healthcare professional side of things. We've also rebranded our technology platform for the patient engagement to Omnicare. So those names continue to live on, but now under the new umbrella of Exeevo. And in terms of the journey of creating the brand, that was a fun thing. Actually, I haven't done one of these before, although I had colleagues who had been through rebrands like that before, and they contributed greatly to that. But we also had a tremendous team from Addison Whitney, and an independent creative agency, I should say rather external creative agency. And the interesting story about Addison is that they were also the agency behind the name Microsoft Outlook. So I guess we got the right people involved, and somehow came together virtually. Everything was done during, in fact, virtual working, right, in the last few months of 2020. And I'm kind of really excited by our new name. It really represents what we do, versus Omnipresence is the technology.
Yeah, that's great, Sanjay. It's actually interesting timing too, because you think about all this amazing news that's been coming out where we actually now see the light at the end of the tunnel. Hopefully May 1st actually is that kind of date that all of us have the opportunity to get vaccinated. And then of course, once we get more and more people, kind of that rebirth or that kind of newness. And then it's springtime. Of course, we just, for those of you who may be not aware, at least in North America, we switched time. We lost an hour actually yesterday, so it's kind of apropos on announcing and kind of a great way to kind of start off spring. So,
Yeah, I can't wait for that. I mean, they're referring to what happened last year as kind of like this anthropause, right? Everything sort of came, all the human activities and society sort of came to a bit of a standstill. So if it really was an anthropause or not, I don't know, but I can't wait to get out of it.
yeah, that's
That's
right.
for sure.
Yeah, no, that's right. So give us, Sanjay, because I mean, we've gotten to know each other for the start of our fiscal year, just through the engagement as a global ISV in our portfolio.
Right.
What's the journey been like? I mean, I know that you've had your organization's been had the opportunity to even be highlighted in some of our keynotes just because of the amazing innovation and the outcomes that you briefly described that you provide to our joint customers. So give us a little bit of your journey experience, because we have people, of course, who watch this and look at and go, should I even invest time in the Microsoft ecosystem? Is it even worth it to go do that? So if you can give us kind of that journey that you've experienced just in how you've approached working in the Microsoft ecosystem and what opportunities that's brought to you.
Yeah, no, that's worth spending a minute on because I still like vividly remember our first conversation. I think it might have been in early 17, maybe even 16. I don't recall exactly, but the actual conversation I remember very vividly with at that time, the individuals that used to lead your sort of at that time Dynamics practice, and now of course it's become so much more, right, with Power Platform and business applications and so on. But it was incredible to me because we were looking for a partner. We knew our mission, we knew our industry, but we also knew that we had to partner with a strong technical sort of platform provider who can be global, who can be agile. And at that time, Microsoft wasn't really the first name that came to mind in terms of innovation and agile, right? I mean, it really was a very established, Word and PowerPoint and all this kind of thing. And Dynamics was still sort of catching up. The more prominent names at that time were, Salesforce and maybe Sugar CRM, etc. So we looked at all that, Adobe, but it was just amazing to me in that meeting when the leaders were articulating what they have in mind. We're like, that's really so perfectly in tune with our vision of removing all these frictions, right, that you have between different systems and integrations and this and that. It really is something to bet on, and we did, and I'm really glad that we did that because 3 years fast forward, it's really coming to be what we had imagined and dreamed of, right? Where things work together. It's not anymore about sales or marketing or events or this or that and automation and AI, and everything works together with the customer at the center or the patient at the center, right? So that's been a really very sort of satisfying to me because I really pushed for our organization to make this bet, even when Dynamics was not really, I suppose at that time in the top 2 or 3, right? But now it probably is. But it's so much more, right? There's all these other things around it that really make it the right ecosystem. So I would just say that if anyone is really thinking about a transformational play, which really tries to unify things and tries to sort of enrich things with great automation, AI, all these different things, VR, AR, right? And it really is a good vision to bet on.
That's fantastic, Sanjay, because you can imagine too is that that journey you've taken not just in the biz app space or Dynamics, but the fact that you've also
exactly.
other portions of the Microsoft Cloud,
Exactly.
Azure being kind of your back end infrastructure, but also I believe there's been dialogues even on the Teams front of how you can incorporate the Teams capabilities with what you're already doing Dynamics with the infrastructure behind the scenes with Azure and all the capabilities. I'm assuming that that's kind of that, to your point. It's like you're seeing that, being able to realize that vision across all different scenarios to drive that better outcome with our customers.
Absolutely, and that's the way I like to put it is that if you're looking for like a single instrument, there are a lot of choices, but you're looking for the whole orchestra to really make a symphony, all right, to make beautiful music, then you really need to think about the ecosystem, right, and all the things that you mentioned are part of that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, because I think when I've talked to ISVs, because there's a choice out there, and we know that, of course, partners have to select which ones are going to create that value proposition and that strategic alignment across the board. But then, to your point, I love that. I might actually steal that analogy, Sanjay. Would you like to have a single instrument? And that might be the case. But if you're looking for the grandiose orchestration of all these different things, having a vendor like Microsoft, having a Microsoft cloud that is multifaceted, can drive that innovation that it's
Yes, yes, I think that's really where we have been driving to, and where I think a lot of it's not everyone's mission, but it's certainly our mission to try to simplify things and make things smarter. Ultimately, with the single idea of can we create better, more meaningful, and timely and helpful experiences, right, for the actual patients and doctors who care for them.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm going to do a couple quick shout outs I got from people. Of course, you know Joe super well, so he's watching from probably a much warmer area than you or I in Southern California. We have John watching from Chicago. But also, this was a good comment from John as well, and it kind of aligns to what you were just describing, is the embracing of the entire stack to kind of build that digital ecosystem across multiple things. And of course, there's a continuing innovation, and also, as that's probably good apropos too to the cloud, and then the announcement that, of course, you saw and you're aware of a couple of weeks ago, where we talked about how Microsoft also is providing this baseline to allow organizations like Exeevo to build onto a very specific industry cloud like the healthcare cloud. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yes, that's very important, actually. We couldn't really have imagined that 3 years ago, although there was talk about it. I remember having a conversation in the lobby of one of your, I think, Advanta buildings in Seattle, about, like, it's inevitable, right? That just like the other big techs, the idea of providing a cloud for healthcare. I don't know about other industries, but certainly in healthcare, that's going to happen, and it needs to happen, right, to really accelerate things. And not that the things cannot be done without that, or were not being done without that, but it's just so much kind of more accelerated, right, and more efficient to do it like that. Because a lot of the challenges in healthcare, while their specifics might be different, the use cases, the personas, right, the sectors within the healthcare space might be different, but a lot of the underlying kind of lowest common denominator is quite simple, right? How do you protect privacy? How do you have a common data model? How do you sort of create omni-channel interactions? How do you apply, advanced reasoning and AI? I mean, these things are very similar, right? Underneath a lot of these different problem statements. So it kind of made sense, and now it's been announced. Obviously, we were working in the preview program since last year, and that is, in fact, one of our big sort of acceleration stories in the year or two to come, around Omnicare, right, which is our platform for patient engagement. We want to add telehealth capabilities, remote monitoring capabilities to, again, life sciences focused use cases, but it just becomes so much easier to do that if we have a secure, trusted infrastructure to work with as a starting point, which is the cloud for healthcare.
No, thanks, Sanjay. Yeah, and that's the biggest thing, is that starting point, because I'm sure that partners out there were like, oh my gosh, is Microsoft going to get into this same scenario? The answer is no. I mean, we do want to provide the industry credibility, and, to your point, the baseline foundation that allows great ISVs like Exeevo to go build, I mean, in such a more streamlined or a more impactful scenario to these end customers. So that leads us into our next really good topic, is some of these scenarios that you've helped to exhibit or allow our end customers to take advantage of. And we were talking about that before we got the show started, on these areas of transformation that you've been able to really drive, and not just in a single area, but globally. Like some of these names that I'm aware of, like this global presence of engagement. So talk about some of the stories where we've together been able to really transform how an organization can take advantage of technology to deliver these better outcomes.
Yeah, because I mean, in the end, that's really what it is all about, right? Like the output and not the input. So actually, there's two that I might mention, just because their journeys are so similar, but also kind of different. One of them is like top five biopharma. Other one is top five med device manufacturers. So kind of quite different in their subsectors within the life sciences space. But a lot of similarities in the sense that they have a pre-existing complex ecosystem, and it's a journey to sort of swap things out and make changes. But then they also both sort of recognize some of the kind of bets that they really need to make in the future, or the innovations rather that they need to deliver in the future, require some of that disruption, some of that kind of willing disruption to happen. Both of them are global, like you said. One of them started in South Asia and expanded to other countries. The other one started here, right at home in the United States, and then now has actually expanded to Korea and other countries as well. And potentially this year would be in other European regions too. Actually, the one of them started about 2 years ago, so it's a bit kind of more mature. The other one is more recent, believe it or not, just about a year. Actually, not even maybe a year. So kind of the speed to value are kind of different in both of them. But what's kind of really interesting to me between the both examples, and actually, by the way, in both cases, we are somewhere in the vicinity of 10 to 20% of their respective, global user populations are actually on the platform doing different use cases. So I mean, there's so much more to go, right? I mean, it's just we're not done yet. But in spite of that, in these kind of early stages or middle stages, there's a couple of things which are like super interesting to me. One, what is truly possible in creating those unified, intelligent experiences in an agile fashion, right? I mean, it's possible. It really is possible to apply that ecosystem idea to so many different use cases, and ultimately only by doing that can we get to that sort of connectedness and insights that we're sort of after, right, in our vision. So that's been fun to see, how that can truly be operationalized, right, not just in the theory but in real life. Also, the other thing which has been interesting for me is the sort of deep collaboration that we have had, with the various teams at Microsoft, right? Whether it's in solving complex engineering issues or architecture, security. That was in a way interesting, and maybe I might even venture to say unexpected, because Microsoft obviously is a massive organization, lots of matrices and teams, and the fact that you can operate in this kind of agile fashion with us, shoulder to shoulder is incredible. Because ultimately why that matters is because it allows all of us, including our subscribers, these two vast, complex global organizations, to work together and get to the endpoint that we're after in a much more kind of rapid and efficient way, right? Versus ultimately they're not trying to solve technology, right? They want to solve, and they should solve, the experiences, and ultimately they should solve the healthcare challenges, right? More than technology. So working together, the fact that we can do this, the fact that we can actually deliver that connected ecosystem in the service of healthcare practitioners or patients, eventually, I think that's really been heartening to see. And two completely different contexts, right? One device organization, one is a biopharma. So yeah, I think there's a lot more that we will see of this in the years to come.
No, that's great, Sanjay. And you're right, because sometimes because of the hugeness of Microsoft, it can be like, oh my gosh, where do I get started? But you exactly your point, where there's so much great collaboration happening across different teams. I mean, of course, selling is always the typical first starting point, because we're jointly trying to position this value to our joint end customers. But then to your point of whether or not our consulting services, our Microsoft consulting services teams are involved, and or our R&D team, in what we refer to as fast track, being able to drive, like when initial engagements start, how do we lay the groundwork to ensure that the organizations, not just Microsoft, but you as a global ISV and the end customer, are aligned with the approach, so that as the things are getting implemented and solved, it's making sure that certain things are discussed and talked about, because that's that foundation that then builds upon the ability to execute.
Yeah, but actually, while all that is 100% true, Brian, what's remarkable to me is or what's kind of uh, very interesting to me is not just those things which are the operations and the problem solving, but kind of the sense of shared responsibility, right?
Mm.
That's a very healthy thing. I mean, ultimately, if we have that, everything else can be figured out, right? But if we're not going to have that sort of sense of shared, then some things will get figured out and some things won't, right? Some things will have a procedure, will have a team that resolve it, the others will not, right? But if we have that sort of, if we start with that sense of shared responsibility, then all these it becomes just sort of tactical things to address along the way, right? So that's something. If you had asked me to bet kind of my silver dollar on that, I don't know if I would have placed that bet that we would have that. Only because I mean the difference in our size is vast, right? We're a GI3, but we're not a $1 trillion organization, right? So that's really and of course we are only in one industry, actually one sector, or one space of one industry. Microsoft is just like in so many things.
Yeah.
So the fact that we have the shared responsibility, I think that's the key.
Yeah. And that's what's great about working with your organization, Sanjay, is that you're very focused. You know who you are, you know the problems and the challenges we can solve together, which offers great opportunity, because rather than trying to boil the ocean across many different companies, there
Mhm.
know who the organizations that can get that value, and we can be very prescriptive, working hand in hand. So before we get to the end and kind of a call to, what were some of the things that you got from either the medtech or the life sciences company that you were talking about when they started to ask the question, "Huh, this is interesting." What was that? What was that aha moment for them that they realized, "Gosh, this is where Exeevo and Microsoft can really provide us that value"? Is there a summation, either commonality between the two or individually, that they came through the selling cycle that said, "Wow, this is why we're going to make this bet on this platform and in this scenario"? Was there something in there that they were asking your teams or our teams about, like, "Wow, we're trying to, this is the one thing, if you can solve this, that will allow us to then move forward with this scenario"?
Yeah, of course, there's a lot of those, kind of nuts and bolts things that, does it meet all the specific business requirements of life sciences? Is it verticalized, or do we have to do a lot of work? Obviously, that's what we do. So, we were able to check that box. Economics is always part of it, right? What is the business case? Certain kind of minimum regulatory requirements, right? So there were a lot of that kind of stuff at the operational level, which I think, obviously together we checked a lot of, obviously, architecture, security, those things. But I think more strategically, in our early conversations, I think the aha moments in both cases, interestingly, was in fact this idea that we could envision a single ecosystem with many spokes for the different use cases, as opposed to previously it's always been about this box and that box and that box, and then how do you sort of connect them. But the fact that limits the kind of experiences that can be created, and the speed with which those can be modified or changed or taken to the next level, I think that really clicked. And now I will say that neither of these organizations are home yet, right, where that vision has been kind of fully translated. They knew, and we knew, that it was going to be a journey. But now they can see, one of these organizations has countries now and users about to, rather, which are going to have multiple use cases. And the fact that all of that exists in, one app, one application framework, one data model, right, one, kind of overarching platform with all the common standards, that's where it, really meets the road, right? That's where the rubber met the road now for them.
Yeah.
So I think it's really that. Sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
No, I was just going to say, I think really that vision that, this is not this box and that box kind of a thing. And, if we have a CRM box, how do we compare with the other CRM box? Yeah, there's that stuff. But that's really not the, true motivation to change, right? And to reimagine. The true motivation to reimagine is that you could have, really one ecosystem with a lot of things coming out of it. ultimately with the idea that creates that connectedness and smoothness in the experiences of the people on the other end, which are physicians or nurses or patients and what have you.
Yeah, no, that's a great summary, Sanjay. And I think the other thing is that, especially in global organizations where we both touch, that vision and execution that companies are already realizing is that ability. Also, to your point, these users are spread globally. They're not just in one location, but to your point of
Oh yes,
different regulations, especially in healthcare, all these different things that permutate across different countries and geographies. Being able to, as you've done so great, is be able to handle all those things and show the expertise, but also show the reliability, the security, the meeting all these needs, but then also all the different nuances of trying to address all these scenarios that these companies are looking for.
yeah, of course. I mean, the table stakes are key. It's a highly sensitive, highly regulated space, so those things are table stakes. But of course, we've never really had any specific challenge with those. It's just par for the course, right? And we've been in this industry for a long time. Microsoft is great technology, right? Also has a lot of certifications and investment in trust based computing. So I think that part was always going to be easy, or well, easy in the sense that it's addressable. But the fact that we can offer a different vision, right, for an ecosystem versus a stack of applications, I think that's a remarkable thing.
Yeah, that's great. So as we wrap this up, if there's, for people watching, if there are any questions you want to raise up, feel free to put it in the window, and we'll have a few minutes left before we close out the session. But feel free to put it in the window, and we might be able to flash that up towards the end and get Sanjay's perspective. So now that we've had this conversation, Sanjay, what next? Like, how? What are things that you may want to share to the people listening on kind of the continued innovation, and how do people find out more? Like, what's a reasonable call to action that you would recommend people do, especially if someone comes across this and they're either in life sciences, pharma, or medtech, they're going, this is super interesting. How would they find out and learn more?
Yeah, that's definitely something we should cover right here at the end. I think a great place to start would be our kind of listings on Microsoft's App Store, right? Store. We are obviously listed there, and here we have a link right there. Also our website, right? Exeevo.com. There are ways to read about us, look at our coverage by different analysts, right? Gartner and Nucleus and the like. Of course, schedule time with us if anyone wants to take a look and get into a deeper conversation. So those are great places to start. Even on LinkedIn, actually, you could connect with us and start a conversation.
Yeah, that's great, Sanjay. So definitely take advantage of it, because you're everyone who either watching this live or watching a replay. Don't hesitate. Sanjay made that an open invitation. If there's something that you caught that was super interesting with this, either reach out to Sanjay, reach out to myself, and we can direct you to the right people. So any last minute comments that you want to close this out with, Sanjay?
Well, I mean, I would just say in closing that, this thing about digital transformation has kind of become old news. Now it's about digital acceleration, right? How do we really move the ball forward and focus on execution and deployment? So this is really exciting times, right? This is what we have been dreaming about, and here it is.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
well, thank you so much for joining us on a Monday. I love the story. It was one thing that I just kind of learned about you. Now that as we continue the dialogue, I know that you're a Mars aficionado. So we definitely have future conversations about that. And hey, what would you do if you were this or this? So that's great. And for those listening, we do this every Monday, or we attempt to, at 8 o'clock. And so next week, kind of when Sanjay was talking about the ecosystem, we actually have Cecilia Flombaum, who is someone that I've known for so many years. She actually is the Microsoft Dynamics ecosystem lead for Microsoft. And so have an amazing opportunity to have a similar chat with her next week that will hopefully reinforce many of the things that Sanjay was referencing. But again, thank you again so much, Sanjay. Good luck. Love the Exeevo rebranding exercise. Appreciate the ongoing partnership we have, the joint success. Be well. Hopefully we'll be able to meet, like everybody else is waiting for the time that we all can somewhat get back to the normalcy of engaging and meeting people face to face. So thanks
Yes,
again. Yeah.
hopefully soon. Thank you, Brian. It was
Right.
nice being here today.
Yeah. Take care.
Take
Have a
care.
good week, everybody. Cheers.
You
Bye.
too. Good week ahead. Bye bye.